Hey, I'm Joe, and I'm a composer and a musician.
That's why we call you the maestro. And I'm Will. I'm a literal doctor.
But don't trust this guy with your ailments.
No, I study comic books, but it still counts.
We're a couple of creative kids who host a podcast called Common Creatives.
We dig deep into filmmakers, musicians, books, and characters, really all types of artistic works and the people who make them.
We break apart the art we love to see what makes it tick.
Basically, we give you the definitive take on whatever or whoever we're discussing. All opinions are definitive and final.
So check out Common Creatives wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the 11ty Life podcast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 100th episode of the 11ty Life podcast. I am so happy that you are here with us today. This is a pretty historically significant moment for our little podcast in our tiny little corner of the internet. We do not take for granted this very limited amount of space that we are allowed to occupy on your phones and in your computers and at the gym and in the car. All these little places that you decide to listen to our show, to listen to these stories, to listen to these experiences, and for us to be able to share a lot of the knowledge that we've gained working within the music industry. So we originally started this podcast out of an idea that we really needed to all get in the same room together and re-examine and rehash the last 15 years of our lives. We started this band 11tyseven literally when we were 15 years old, probably circa 2002, and it has been an absolutely amazing journey that has taken us on many, many different roads. And the latest step on that journey is this podcast episode. So I'm very, very grateful for everybody who's joining us for this. We started out just wanting to share a lot of the stories of our experiences from touring, of making records, of being on major and indie labels, of demystifying a lot of the backdoor, back end kind of part of the music industry that feels very, very veiled to most artists who are just getting started out or aren't quite sure how the music business works. How do you make money in it? How do I know when I'm ready to tour with a band? What do I do when I experience conflict between members of my band? We have explored all of those different topics through personal anecdotes and stories. And slowly over the course of the last 3 years, the show has evolved into basically an excuse for us to have these kinds of conversations with artists and creators, people that are within our network and even people that are on the outsides of our network that we've never met before. It's a smattering of all those types of people and experiences and stories. And it has allowed us to be a part of a very rich ecosystem of artists and creators and people who are really into not just musical creativity, but creativity in general. Exercising those muscles that get all of this information and feelings and thoughts and perceptions that we have of the world rattling around in us constantly. Exercising those muscles that pull those things out and that manifest those things into works of art, into sounds, into pictures, into drawings, into ways that we approach life, into ways that we approach other people, into how we empathize with others. Our band has gone through many different sonic changes. We have gone through many internal changes. We have lost and gained members on this journey, and not just bandmates, but also groups of fans and friends, people that come into our lives for a season and impact us in ways that are very, very special. And that is kind of what today's episode is going to be about. I can't think of any better way to celebrate 100 episodes of this podcast than celebrating the very people that make it so much fun to create. And that is you. If you are listening to this podcast right now, I'm including you in this because why the hell not? Every single person who has ever come to our shows, who has ever sent us an email, who has ever checked out our music because a friend told them it was awful and they had to listen to it. Everybody who has ever taken a small piece of a very, very hard-earned paycheck and spent it on the frivolity that is our band. I want this show to be about you. So thank you so much if you are that person. And a lot of you know who you are. You know, one of the things that are so magical about bands is that they are not just businesses. They are these weird little machines where where artists are constantly funneling the best of what they have to offer the world into songs. And when you put a piece of yourself like a song out into the universe, all of a sudden it's this very tangible thing that others are allowed to have their own relationship with, and that relationship is allowed to change and morph over time. I think about songs from my youth, and I have a completely different relationship with them now than I ever did when I was growing up with them. They impact me in different ways. If you've ever listened to a song and all of a sudden the lyrics just start to hit you in a completely different way, it's because your own life experiences are constantly changing your perception of the world around you. When you have experienced deep loss, all of a sudden you are connected to the deep loss that others have felt. When you experience trauma or pain in your life, suddenly you have a common language with others who have also experienced something similar. I am absolutely in love with music because I feel like music at its core is a key that unlocks these doors that we shut on each other constantly throughout the day and throughout our lives. We learn to be more internalized. We learn to put up walls. We learn to put up defenses. And there's something so powerful about the right sound, the right song, the right words or lyrics or melodies that can unlock all of those doors, unlock all of those defenses. That has happened for me many, many times throughout my life. And one of the reasons that I still love and enjoy creating music is because I love the process of learning how to be more vulnerable, more human. And my musical journey has been just that. So that is a long-winded way of saying thank you so much for listening to our band, for deciding to be engaged with it, for allowing us into your ears, into your homes, into your lives, onto your Instagrams, onto your Facebooks. Thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of the musical memories that you are making right now, because I know how important those things are for me, and it gives me such joy to feel like I may have even an opportunity to share in that with somebody else with something that I create. No matter how long you have been a fan or a casual listener of our band and the things that we create, you have played a role in our story. You have taken us over the last decade, even from making records literally in single wide trailers to having our own studio, producing for other artists, being able to share in the artistry and the songwriting process with other people. Not only that, you all allowed me personally to be able to do that as a college professor at one point. So I cannot thank you enough. I feel like every time we come into the studio and start a brand new episode of 11D Life, I love reminding myself of all of you, because in many ways over the year, even though a lot of the cast and characters have changed and even a lot of the fan base has changed, you all have been a family for me in a way that I've never known family before. It seems right now that everything in the world is just infinitely crazier and only getting crazier by the day, especially due to the COVID-19 outbreak and everything that's been happening. In the middle of all of that, we also had a death in my family very recently. It's been very difficult and very hard, and it has felt like a really, really dark last 4 or 5 weeks, not only in my life personally, but for a lot of people all around the world who are experiencing grief and loss in a way that I think might be unprecedented for a lot of people. And in the middle of all of this crazy shit happening in the world, there are still you guys, members of the 11D family, who are still writing me kind letters, kind words, kind notes, thanking me for small things, letting me know your thoughts and feelings about the new music that we just put out with the last record. Those kind thoughts and words have meant so much to me, especially in this weird time. So it almost seems fortuitous that we should be doing a 100th episode with which to celebrate all of you, because I feel like I don't get to tell you thank you enough, and I don't know when we're going to be able to get back out on the road and be in front of you all physically. But please hear me when I say that no matter how big or small your involvement has been with this podcast or the music that we make, it means the world to us, and I hope that I've expressed that adequately. A really quick shout out to everybody who is brand new over at the 11D Life Facebook page. And look, over the past couple of years since we started actually, I don't even know how long the 11D Life Facebook group has been active, but I know that I remember when there were 0 members, and now we have over 236 of you. To me, that is amazing. I just absolutely love being able to think about that. I think about our community growing. I love seeing the conversations that you all all have with each other, the different bits of pop culture and music that you share with each other. So a big shout out to our new members at the 11D Life Facebook: Zach Zaborski, Grace Stanfield, Kendra Lynn, Kara Joy, I see you, Julia Hayter. I am a big fan of your brother. We've had some fun times together. Samuel Robinson, Nolan Croach, I'm not entirely sure how to say that. Taylor Fremier, Moses Goltz, Hannah Bynum. Hannah, I think you and I were on a phone call together a few months back. Yeah, for the Kickstarter. Rick Medina, Timothy Quigley. Yeah, absolutely wonderful people. Also, Mark Gerald's wife, Jill. This is such insider baseball, I guess, at this point, but this show's about you. I don't give a shit. I want you to know that I see you and I love being able to see you. Anja Gebert, Peter Ray, Tobias Chan, Nathan Chalker, Rochelle Lynn, Kara Stoltzfus, I think is how you say that, and Jason McKenzie, I'm sorry, who's a firefighter in the Spokane Fire Department. We love having you here, and thank you so much for being a part of this group. So as many of you know, I solicited a lot of recordings from many of you to share with us maybe what your favorite episode was, or something that was said on one of the shows, or any sort of experience that we've all had together between band and fan that you wanted to be able to share and to have a platform to do that. That's what this episode is about. So I cannot wait to play you guys yourselves the recordings that you sent me on today's episode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first person that we're going to hear from is an 11D friend called AJ.
Hey, eleventyseven and 11D Life podcast listeners. My name is AJ and I am from New Zealand. At the current time of recording, this is in lockdown due to the coronavirus. I've been a big fan of eleventyseven since the Adventures in Evil days. I've really enjoyed your music since I first heard it, and really enjoyed getting the chance to remix one of your songs, Inside Out, which you can find under my music artist name, Andinix, and I hope that in the future I get another chance to remix another song. I have loved listening to the recent album commentary. I've definitely had some great points to take away from that. All the best for what you guys have to come, and thanks for some dopey synth beats.
AJ, thank you so much for sending that in. Those are very, very kind things to say. I always think it's super cool whenever people take some of the songs that we've written and they reimagine it and put their own spin on it, that they put their own imagination thumbprint on it. So I want to thank you for taking the time to make something new and fun out of our music. So this next submission, I'm not entirely sure who it's from, but it sounds like it's from Gollum. So this one goes out to all of you Lord of the Rings fans out there. Yeah, hope you enjoy it.
Oh, it's the 100th episode of 11D Life. We love it, don't we, precious? No, we hate it. But precious, we love it. No, we hate it.
So there you have it, 11D Life, the most divisive show on the internet right now that even Gollum is not sure how he feels about it. So I'm going to move on to this next one. So here is another really, really kind submission that we got. And they didn't say their name in the recording, but it was very, very encouraging for me personally. So I want to share it with you.
Congrats on hitting 100 episodes of 11D Life. It makes me so happy to know that my favorite band of all time has hit such a milestone. And I just want to quickly say that I'm so happy that you all got back to doing music. Rad Science and Basic Glitches were two albums that came out in really crucial kind of moments in my life. Both came out in really down parts of my life, and both of them have helped to pick me right back up. So I just want to say thank you all for that. Congrats on 100 episodes, and heck yeah, rock on. Unicorns rule.
I mean, anybody that thinks that unicorns rule, I think already kind of has an elevated position in my life, in my mind. I thought it was really interesting that this person said that Rad Science and Basic Glitches came out at a really difficult point in their life. Me too, man. A lot of those songs came out of a really sad and broken place. And so the fact that you were able to find some catharsis or some joy in it makes me feel really, really happy. So thank you for sharing that with me. So this next submission is from a lovely unicorn princess known to some is Hannah.
Hi, Matt and Davey, and everyone at Rock Candy. My name's Hannah, and I wanted to share a piece of advice that Matt himself actually gave to me on our Skype call last month. He said, sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is lower the bar and be okay being where you are in life. And this was something that I had no idea I needed to hear until I heard it. But just being a perfectionist and trying to balance school and work and being a musician, this was such a helpful piece of advice, just to kind of give myself permission to not have such high expectations of myself and be okay being where I am in life and being myself. So thank you, Matt and Davey and everyone in 11D for all that y'all do. And just for changing all of our lives. Happy 100th episode of 11D Life, and here's to 100 more.
Hannah, thank you so much for those kind words and thoughts. I'm so happy that you have found a little bit more peace in lowering your bar. I think it is amazing to have ambitions and dreams and goals for ourselves in lots of different areas of life. Maybe your goal for yourself is spiritual growth, or maybe you're growing a business, or you're growing a band, or you are in the middle of getting an education and you have really, really high standards for yourself. There is nothing wrong with having high standards for yourself. But look, if you are anything like me, you are possibly neurotic, a perfectionist about everything. You are an overthinker. You do it chronically, and you're constantly second guessing yourself, wondering if what you're doing is right, or if it is the most efficient thing, or if it is going to be the most helpful thing that you can do. And ultimately, that is a thought loop that makes us miserable at the end of the day. It raises our anxiety levels. It paralyzes us so that we can't make any decisions, so that we're not doing anything, so that we're not accomplishing anything. I know, because I deal with this on a daily basis. So if I could say anything to attempt to encourage anybody who is out there and feeling this way, who might struggle with these same things that I do, it's keep in mind that life is a process, and everything in life is not acquisition. It's not achievement. It's not goal getting or goal setting. Life itself is a process, and it is not a destination. Allow yourself to not know. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to be wrong. Allow yourself to fail at everything. Don't spend your life trying so hard to isolate yourself from failures or from judgment that you get to the end of it and you realize you haven't lived any of it. Whew, I just took a little bit of a deep dive into that, but I needed to hear that. I needed to hear somebody say that to me. And if you're out there and that was something that you needed in that moment, I really hope that it speaks to you. If not, we have more nice words from other 11D family. Here's one from an 11D friend who doesn't live too far away from us. We live here in Asheville, North Carolina, and our friend Mark lives just down the road a ways. And we've even ended up on a couple of Halo firefight teams together. And I'm always able to have a lot of fun with this guy. So yeah, here's Mark's.
Hey, what's up, Matt and 11D Lifers? This is Mark Gerald. So I think I started listening to Crime Wave in September of last year, and that's the best I can tell anyway. That was like when I first came upon that song, and just got like really into all the Jelly Rock stuff. And then you guys played at the library that I work at, which still baffles me that you guys played there, and I got to see you perform like a month later. So I don't know. It's just really ironic. And yeah, I guess that's how I feel about a lot of the 11D Life stuff. Like it's just kind of like dovetailed a lot with kind of what I've got going on in my life right now. And it's just been fun, and I've enjoyed, listening to the podcast, listening to music, obviously. So yeah, and it's kind of changed things for me a little bit. Like I guess anything that you get really involved with does. I've taken on some new interests. I actually downloaded an app to like start learning to like a little bit of piano today. So that's totally new for me. I mean, I tried guitar years and years ago, but couldn't stick with it. But I guess I don't know, I guess you just need those little self-motivation moments in life sometimes to change things for you a bit. So anyway, hopefully more of that to come. And love what you guys are doing. Bye.
Mark, thank you so much. I am so glad that you are learning to play piano now. And I hope that that's something that you're able to stick with and find a lot of joy in. I am a notoriously bad keyboard player. I know that a lot of our music is mostly keyboards and synthesizers and stuff, but I guarantee that if you've ever had any piano lessons or you have achieved any sort of piano proficiency, you're probably better at it than I am. So I got a pretty interesting submission that I think I know who this is from, but the cool thing about this submission is that it sounds like it was sent while she was at work, and because she's whispering and because the audio gets really glitchy at one point, it sounds super creepy. And when we heard it, we had to listen to it a few times to kind of like understand what was going on. But yeah, I'm going to call this one a Unicorn's Confetti Explosion Go.
Hey guys, I'm at work right now, so I can't really talk long, but I just wanted to say I love 11tyseven rocks, and I am so thrilled that you guys make podcast, blah, blah, blah. I love so many songs, and they make such a huge difference in my life that I come home and I just listen to some songs sometimes, and it makes everything better. So if you're ready for this, got Unicorns, Confetti Explosions, go!
Thank you so much for risking unemployment to send us that message. It was amazing and one of my favorites. So here is another submission that we got for the show.
So I feel a little weird doing this, and I've never done anything like this before, but I haven't been impacted by an album like I was Basic Glitches in a long time. A lot of the lyrics articulated things I've been feeling about my conservative evangelical Christian upbringing that I had not yet found a way to express. And after I listened to it, I was able to talk to my loved ones for the first time about how I had been feeling. I am really grateful to 11tyseven for creating such powerful work and for being brave enough to publicly share it. And I think that the album is a kind of soundtrack for a personal renaissance that a lot of us relate to, but have just not yet had the words to explain. So thank you for that.
I actually need to thank you for saying such nice things and being so articulate. I had never thought about what we're doing or what we're doing creatively to be sort of a cataloging of our own personal renaissance, but I would absolutely agree with that 110%. It does feel like that to me. It does feel like this crazy journey that we're on that is constantly redefining so much of the world around us. So I need to thank you for finding the words that I couldn't. I don't have any contact information for where this submission came from, but just please know that you have my gratitude from the bottom of my heart. And I know how difficult it is, especially coming from a Protestant evangelical, hardcore Southern Baptist upbringing, at least for me personally. These are really difficult and triggering things to try to talk with people who are close to you about, especially family members. If you are involved in that right now, man, my heart goes out to you right now because there are still topics and subjects that I feel like are very, very personal to me that I want to be able to share with my family, and they still feel very off limits. Anytime that you are breaking away from a belief that is held by you and your community or your tribe or your family, it is a really difficult thing. It takes a lot of courage. And if it's any consolation, it also just takes time. When we have personal revelations about ourselves, or we have a change in a mode of thinking that we feel like alleviates pressure and pain and suffering in our lives, and all of a sudden gives us the ability to experience joy and other things in life in a way that we weren't able to inside of that belief, it is really energizing. And the first thing that we want to do is go and spread our new gospel to other people, our new perception of life. And we want to see them be able to share in that same joy that we have. And I think sometimes it's really important to take a step back and accept the changes that you've gone through for you and allow those changes to happen in others if and when they decide to let those things happen. I remind myself of this all the time, that 15-year-old Matt would be absolutely freaked the hell out at 34-year-old Matt right now. So let those conversations happen when they're going to happen. Don't try to force it. I'm saying this for me because I'm that zealot of a person that I experience one thing and I'm like, the whole world has to know about this immediately. Yeah, I hope that's encouraging to you, because what you had to say was very encouraging to me. This next submission is from a friend of ours, Kelly, who she and her husband own a shop here in the town that Davey and I live in Canton, North Carolina. It's called Mr. Robot's Shop, and it is this super cool little computer repair shop that has an amazing museum in the top of it. It's like a personal home computing gaming museum. So there's all of these old computers and printers and technology from the 70s through today. So like seeing all of these old video game systems, it was like simultaneously nostalgic and fascinating. And ultimately, after the first time that Davey and I visited this museum, we called the owners and we asked them if we could do our first photo shoot in, 6 or 7 years in their space, because the space just looked so cool. So all the promo shots for the Rad Science album were done in this space, and Kelly and her husband were absolutely wonderful. They also have an amazing daughter as well, who was incredibly helpful on that photo shoot. Super, super cool family, and we feel very fortunate to be able to call them neighbors to a certain degree.
Hey guys, this is Kelly from Mr. Robot Shop. I just wanted to say I think it's cool that you guys are letting us be part of your 100th episode for your podcast. I really didn't have any idea what to think when a couple of guys said, hey, can we come do a photo shoot at your shop in your upstairs computer video game museum? But I'm really glad we said yes. Not only were you guys and your wives super fun, respectful, flexible, let our daughter be involved in the photo shoot a little bit. I'm just glad we got to meet you guys. We became fans of your music. I listen to Rad Science and Basic Glitches probably 3 or 4 times a week. Your lyrics are absolutely relatable. They resonate. And I'm just really glad that we get to hear your music. So keep on keeping on. Look forward to more.
Kelly, you are a sweetheart, and we cannot thank you enough for allowing us that experience at your shop. Hey, if you are ever in Canton, North Carolina, after all of this like COVID stuff blows over and we're allowed to hang out with each other again, make a point to stop by Mr. Robot Shop, because you will not be disappointed. It is super cool and a rad place to be. Okay, so this next one is actually an 11D friend telling a story about an encounter that she had with a publication who decided to write us a review.
When I was in high school, eleventyseven got a really bad review in some Christian music magazine, and I wrote them a letter because I was pissed off because it was my favorite record of the year. And in the letter, I said something like, "You're so effing wrong," or something like that, not realizing in my little Christian homeschool brain that effing, what that actually meant. They published the article, the magazine published the article, or published my letter in the next response. And I remember being so stoked on that my letter got published because I was defending eleventyseven. And then I went and saw y'all in Estes Park a little while later and was like so stoked to meet you and hang out with you because of that letter. The world's a funny place. Anyway, thanks for doing you. I don't really listen to you anymore, but in high school, your band was very, very important in keeping me alive. So, thanks.
Okay, so my favorite thing about this submission is that she was such a badass for writing a counter argument or counter review to this review that we got in a publication. But then at the very end of it, she's like, I don't really listen to you anymore, so I moved on with my life, and you probably should too. I remember exactly when this happened, and since this person didn't provide any contact information, I won't give her name or anything out. But I remember very distinctly all 3 of us in the band at the time thought that this was the most badass thing that anybody had ever done. I mean, I think anytime that you are threatening a primarily homeschool audience with profanity, it's always going to be a fun thing to watch later. Okay, so here is a submission from a fellow unicorn named Jacob.
Hello, my name is Jacob, and I actually became an eleventyseven fan through 11ty Life. When the first episode of 11ty Life came out, I was in high school, and I had been listening to Say Goodnight Kevin's podcast, The Inner Tube, and on that he mentioned he was going to be on this new podcast called 11ty Life with this band 11tyseven. I had never heard of them before. So I used to listen to podcasts while I was kind of just doing everyday things. And this was during a time where I had to clean my room. And so I turned on, I think there were already a few episodes of 11D Life already out by the time I started listening, but I turned on the podcast while I was cleaning my room, and it ended up being like the most interesting, entertaining, funny, just kind of strange but fun, I don't know, times I'd ever cleaned my room. By the time, I got through, I think, the 3 episodes that were already out, I had already finished cleaning my room, and I was just sitting there next to my iPod and just like hoping for more. And I was like, dang, I need to learn more about this band. I need to listen to their music. So yeah, I'd say that's probably like the biggest standout memory I have with 11D Life is just listening to it kind of on a whim while I needed to clean my room, and it ended up being really fun and really interesting, and got hooked and haven't looked back ever since.
Look, hot take, but if you don't think that finding a way to pass time quickly when you are cleaning your room is important, then I don't think you've ever tried to clean your room before. This is one of the highest compliments that I feel like our band has ever been paid, because I need ways to pass time while doing menial chores. And it makes my heart glow to feel like some ridiculous conversation that I had with my friends was able to help somebody clean their room more quickly. So thank you so much for that. And I should go ahead and give a shout out while it's relevant to our friend Kevin McCreary of the podcast, or of the YouTube channel, Say Goodnight Kevin. I think he also does have a podcast right now that he does. I'm not sure if they still do the Inner Tube podcast anymore, but Kevin McCreary is one of my friends, and we always have the absolute best time together. And before we even started this podcast, I remember getting on the phone with him and pitching him the idea for the show and asking him if he would come and host the very first season of it. So if you go back to the first season of 11D Life, it's actually hosted by Kevin McCreary, and he was really, really kind about showing us the ropes and showing us what he knew about podcasting and giving us an excuse to kind of talk to, with, and about each other without it feeling super self-important. So yeah, I mean, I think you could probably even go so far as to say that Kevin McCreary was actually one of the founders of this podcast. So much love to him and to Carmen and to everybody in that camp. And if you haven't checked him out, you should go to YouTube and check out Say Goodnight Kevin, because he is one of the funniest people that I know. Okay, so here is a submission about somebody's favorite episode of 11D Life.
Honestly, for me, the only thing I can think of is that time when Matt and Davey sat down and looked at bad reviews of the first 11tyseven album, or the one that was on Spotify at least. And oh my gosh, it was so hilarious. I was dying of laughter at like the bad reviews. It was so funny. I feel like that's actually probably my favorite episode. And I know it's like one of the earlier ones too, but oh man, I should re-listen to it, but it's really good.
I remember doing this episode and going on, scouring the internet, trying to find all these different reviews of our music. And the ones that are the most entertaining are the ones where people don't like it. And look, it's one of those things where music is highly subjective. So like, even though a lot of the world may love one particular artist, there's always going to be a group of people that feel like it's absolute trash. And you know what? It makes the world a more colorful place to live in. So I love it. And that's why I really do love reading reviews of people that absolutely hate our music, who are not about what we're about. It's like what we were talking about earlier. You can literally take every good vibe that you have in your body and do everything within your artistic capabilities of expressing that, of perpetuating joy in the world with music. And people are still going to be out there who listen to all of that joy that you tried to put into this one single thing and find nothing but pain and suffering in it. And that's just the reality. So this next clip that I have is from a guy named Zach. And for those of you who listen to the podcast regularly, you know that we had a couple of shows where we revisited some of the road stories that we had from when we were touring really, really heavily. And the band was me and John and Caleb. And I was so surprised to get this submission, because I never even imagined that I would ever cross paths with this guy anymore. But as fate would have it, he's on the podcast now. So here we go. This is a clip from Zach about his favorite episode.
My favorite episode of 11D Life is episode 20, Road Stories, where Matt shared the story of riding in the van that I had the privilege of riding in that day, where he pooped his pants. A day I will never forget, a smell I will never forget. Thanks, Matt.
So when we were originally telling the story, we were talking about how we would van swap sometimes, and there would be, we'd have some lead singers traveling in different other bands' vans, and the lead singer of this particular band that we were playing a show with that night was traveling in the van with us. So during this story, I absolutely shit myself. Everybody was there. They saw it. So you can go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear the whole story about what happened. But yeah, this was the guy who was there. So Zach, thank you so much for lending credibility to the story that we told. And thank you for reaching out and sharing that. Miss you, brother. And I hope that we're able to grab a beer sometime together. So this next one is from our dear friend, Emily Pye, who is such a beautiful and wonderful soul. She is an excellent community builder, and we have been able to see her at several of the shows that we did last year, and it was a really, really wonderful time to get to hang out, and I love seeing her creative output, and I feel so honored that she shares those gifts and those talents and that kind of magic with our band and with the Eleventy family all over the globe.
My biggest musical touchstone moment is hearing the song Someone Else by the Jelly Rocks for the first time. Just the lyrics and the message behind that song was something that I really connected with when I first heard it, and I still do. And looking back, that was just such a turning point for me personally and musically, and I never would have imagined where this has all taken me. Like, it's just become something so much bigger than the music. It's the community and the friends I've made, and like the fan projects and our group chat, and just all the fan art. And like, I sell custom shoes now, which is so fun. And I'm just so thankful every day for this place where I can be myself and where I can just make people happy doing the things that make me happy, and just feel so loved and supported and all that, like to the point where I'm totally comfortable flying across the country by myself to hang out with all you guys, having never met any of you before. It's just so special, and I just can never thank you all enough for being such a light in my life and giving me a place where I can feel so at home. And I appreciate you all more than words can express. And I'm just so stoked for everything in store for the rest of this year. It's a blast, and I just love every second of it.
This submission really, really made me miss being able to be in front of people. I know that we don't play a lot of shows anymore, not nearly as many as we used to, just because our lives look totally different now, and touring is much, much harder for us. But this past year was an amazing turning point for me, where I realized just how much I really did miss spending time with this family, with this community, creating shared experiences with each other, because it really does elevate the quality of my life to be able to be in the same room with other people, getting loud, having fun, playing all of these stupid songs together. One day when I'm too old to do any of it anymore, I will miss it. I will miss it like a missing limb. I know for sure I will. So I just want to thank everybody who's ever spent the time traveling across the country or across the state or across the street to come see our band and to come be a part of those experiences with us. This last one that we have is from a girl named Caitlin, who supported us in our most recent Kickstarter, and she had very, very kind things to say. Here's Caitlin.
Hi, my name is Caitlin O'Brien, and I'm a huge fan of eleventyseven. I love their music. I love all of their albums. I love their sound. I love their pop punk vibe and pop rock vibe. I have been a fan of them since I was 16 years old, and I am still a fan today at 28 years old. I also want to say that I was reminded of the band during a particular difficult time in my life, and their music helped me through that rough time. So thank you, eleventyseven. Thank you, Matt and Davey and John, for being a part of eleventyseven. And I love Rock Candy Recordings. Thank you guys for being a part in my life through your music. Love your fan, Caitlin.
Huge hugs and high fives to everybody who submitted for today's episode. You took time out of your busy schedule and life to be a part of something that we're creating, and that makes us collaborators to some degree. And I really, really appreciate that. You are putting wonderful, wonderful vibes out into the universe, and we are receiving them and turning them into unicorn poop. I am so looking forward to all of this COVID stuff being over and us all being able to be together again. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane, and write some songs, draw some pictures, do some mashups, play games with your friends, FaceTime your family, check in and see how each other are doing. Or you can always put on some eleventyseven and clean your room or house at an alarming speed. And before you know it, it'll all be spotless. Hey, just a quick shout out to everybody who followed our band from the early years on. You probably know that we had a drummer. His name is Jonathan Stevens. He's one of our absolute best friends on the planet. He is doing new music now in a band called Howl in the Valley. And it's super fun. It's Americana, it's folk, and he is excelling at that and living his best life. So if you haven't checked him out yet, go check out Howl in the Valley and give him a high five. Tell him that we sent you. In the meantime, be magical to each other, because as soon as the COVID-19 crisis is behind us, we're going to glitter bomb everything.
11ty Life is a production of Rock